Oh, hi. I'm here with my friend, Caitlin Lonegan, an artist who works primarily in painting and drawing, living in Los Angeles and raised in the East Coast of the US. And we're going to talk a bit about living as an artist. Caitlin's generously agreed to discuss with me, and we were just talking about the question about dealing with insulting comments about your artwork. And so we'll start there. You were just about to say something that you had seen other people do.
I want to say thank you for asking me. I'm excited to be talking about being an artist with you. Um, I was just talking about how I may personally not be the best example of how one deals with insulting comments, but the people that I've seen that deal with it the best are the ones who are able to sort of turn it around and either pose it as questions to the people asking, um, or they'll kind of slyly respond in a way that I think that people feel good, but they don't even know that the person's not really responding.
Do you remember examples of either of those?
The person who's specifically coming to mind is Jim Welling, actually. The way Jim Welling
Okay.
answers questions is
Oh, yeah.
really kind of amazing. And he has a really dry sense of humor. And maybe that's just the answer, is just dealing with it with humor. It's just dealing with their with questions with a lightness and sense of humor. Another example is how Laura Owens used to deal with questions. Like, people would bring up some really gender-based things around her work. Like, I saw people being like, well, why do you like all this girly, like girly iconography and girly, and she would just really deadpan and be like, well, I don't really think there's anything particularly girly about anything that I do. Can you point out which things and why you think they're girly? That was, tell
Tell
me
me
more.
more.
Yeah, tell me more about.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I was initially saying, like, when people ask me questions, I'm not the best. Sometimes I'll use it as an indicator of my mood, because sometimes I will just say whatever comes through my mind, even if it's conflict creating, which I don't advise. But I will ask questions, like ask for more information if I'm in a better place. Maybe that's the best
Hmm.
advice.
I feel
Yeah.
like I always get somebody who wants to come up to me at an opening and say, "Are you happy with the work?" And I'm like,
Mm.
yeah. That's why I put
Mm.
it up.
Yeah, that's a hard one. You think it would be implicitly understood that you're
Yeah.
putting it out there.
Did any of these like particularly resonate with you? Like dealing with rejection or disappointments or self-care? Since you have a show up right now at Broadway Gallery, how are you managing the roller coaster of like completing a show, having it open, do the opening, and then what happens in the aftermath?
Yeah, I am dealing with it right now. It's always really disorienting after working on something, uh well, for a deadline, and then dealing with, like, as it's like a whole production, like a whole process of what has to happen when the work leaves, and then you get to another place and you see it there. And I've tried a lot of different things, but basically, like, my daily schedule is different than what it usually is. I try to make sure I have a schedule after a show, because I can get really caught up in the emotions of it, and there's inevitably disappointment, no matter how well everything goes. For me, the simplest thing is, like, every time I finish a painting, like, I'm working on a painting, and even if I love the painting, and I'm like so excited I finished it, it's really exciting, it does what I want it to do. The next day I'm like, oh, it's just a painting, like, there's this, like, because it feels like it's the whole world for a period of time, and then there's a sort of right sizeness that starts to happen after a show. And so a show can be really consuming, and um then when it goes into the world, we actually have to deal with the world's response to it in some way, which inevitably is not what happens in our head. um
Yeah.
yeah, so I try to try to maintain a schedule of some sort. I try to make sure I'm getting out of the studio. I like to walk. I like to walk. Try to make sure I'm like walking regularly. I always give myself a little gift.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Good. That's good.
I guess over the years, I've actually really tried to take care of myself leading up to the shows more. Maybe that's the real thing I'll say is that I try to make a priority of not letting self-care slip during the process of making a show, which is hard to do when there are more demands on you. So that also is a big thing we have to learn all over and over again is, like don't stop exercising, keep eating good food.
It's art. It should be fun and not miserable. I mean, when I was closer to 30, I would like pull an all-nighter by eating a pint of ice cream.
Yeah, no all-nighters. No all-nighters. I never actually did art all-nighters, but I did do a lot of like cutting out my social life,
Yeah.
and I try not to do that
Oh,
anymore.
that's a really good one because yeah, you can go into a tunnel and not see people.
Yeah. It's really important to maintain communication and even like face-to-face experiences with other people, even when I'm on a deadline.
Yeah, social balance, I think of maybe introvert and extrovert are, they're really broad categories, but like what kind of social engagement keeps you energized and what like big parties maybe can be a little wearing when you're working on a show or a project, but like small groups can be keep you both grounded and excited.
Yeah. Yeah. And even I mean, living in LA, we're so spread out from one another. So like I've started using the phone more,
Oh,
which is kind of novel. So I'll be like on the phone with other artists while I'm in my studio and they're also in their studio. And it feels sort of silly sometimes, but it it helps me, you know.
even doing these interviews is like really grounding and heartening for me. So this is great. Thank you for again. It's like practical or conceptual things you learned like just by doing art that you were not prepared for by any educational experience.
I wasn't prepared at all for anything. That's I think one of the things is when you're in art school, you're learning how to make the work. And then so much of what we have to learn, after, or if you're choosing to, continue to make work or to try to share it, is like how to make the puzzle all fit together. It's like, how are you going to take care of yourself and how are you going to keep your practice inspired and inspiring and it keeps changing. That's the other thing. Like I would be like, oh, maybe there will be a formula I will figure out, and then I will know how this balance all works out. Like, yeah, maybe just the biggest lesson is how much time doing non-art things we have to do to make art and share it.
Yeah, I told a cousin once that I was been making living from doing art, but I actually probably only spend 10% of my time making artwork, maybe.
Mm.
Maybe a little more some comes, fluctuates, but and my cousin said, "Oh, I would have thought it was more than that." And I said, "Yeah, that's what I was thinking too."
We thought so too. Yeah. 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 I think like the idea, I guess I do think that the notion of a full-time artist is a myth. You're either creating a business or an institution, or you work for a business or an institution. Like there's no way to escape a lot of the things that maybe as we as artists try to escape by becoming artists.
Have you gotten like burned by anything like with contracts or whatnot that has been like a learning experience you'd like to share?
Oh, that's a good. So I guess I would just say generally, like I am a big proponent of putting things in writing, and I think the art world has moved more in that direction than it was when I started, when I imagine you started. When I first started, the advice that I got was like, if somebody tries to make you sign a contract, run is actually what I was first told.
Yeah.
Like they're not, it's like a business, it's a really personable business. It's all about relationships, and the better galleries are not asking you to sign contracts. And I mean, maybe that's still good advice. Like I think you have to like get a good lawyer to review anything that you're signing. I think consignment forms are really important specifically. And I think like paperwork documenting anything that is coming and going from your studio is really important. Just like collecting bills of lading, like anytime anything, like even if it's a small drawing leaves, you want some sort of record of it, even if it's handwritten. Because I think things get lost. I don't even mean like specifically getting burned. Like, I mean, I think the thing I've been burned most by was like an insurance company, like that's just I had a studio fire at some point, and the insurance company found every reason not to cover things and to delay and delay and delay, and took 3 years to get support for what had happened.
You had to provide documentation of everything that was damaged.
Yeah, and they do this thing, or this, I don't know if I just got bad luck with this agent, but they do this thing where not only do you have to provide documentation, but they make you provide documentation. Like I would provide it in one way, and they would come at me and say, can you provide it to us in this other way? And then they come at it, and it was like 4 times. Like they do a lot of, so I think I was working with somebody who was in particularly bad faith also, that I didn't, maybe if somebody's doing that to you, you call out the process earlier on and you ask to get a different agent. But yes, you need documentation. And I did have a number of artworks that they refused to cover because I didn't have clear, I didn't take a record of when the artwork returned. So, it had been out at a gallery, and the gallery decided they didn't want to hire like a professional shipper to do it. And so they hired just somebody to come drop it off in a van. And I didn't know that I needed to make a bill of lading at that point. I was very young.
Yeah.
And so I needed the documentation showing this is when it arrived back to me. And so they didn't cover the artwork because they claimed I could have been making it up, that the artwork was mine and with me, even though I did have like emails showing it was happening. They were just like, it's not, they were just like, any excuse an insurance company will use any excuse not to pay you that they can.
Can I quickly
So
ask you what kind of insurance that's called that was covering your work?
what do you mean?
I mean, I feel like there's different categories, and this was covering the value of the artworks in your studio.
I just actually don't remember, but because there is different wording that you have to be really careful of. So it's a very good question that you're asking. And some of them will cover replacement value and some of them will cover the artwork value. And that's something that when you're reading the contract, you want to have somebody who knows this stuff reviewing it for you.
Yeah.
That's like a kind of loophole because, replacement value, they'll just cover materials, whereas like you could spend like hours and hours and hours on it. And, the true cost of this is leading to another lesson, what the true costs of making your artwork are. The true costs are much more complicated than that.
Who'd you talk to give you some guidance on getting it?
Getting insurance.
Yeah.
In some ways I got lucky early on because I rented when I first graduated graduate school. My now husband and then boyfriend and I kind of teamed up and got a long-term lease on a studio space, which was probably one of the best things we ever economically did for ourselves because it was like during the last recession and we locked in like a sizable studio at a decent rate. And when you have a commercial lease, they make you get insurance. And at the time it was like, oh God, this costs so much. But they make you do it to protect the space. And as a part of it, whenever you're dealing with these entities, you have to prove that you're a business too. And I was already represented and exhibiting, and I had to prove it to like get the lease for the space and get the insurance that was all required. And as a result of doing it So this is the good experience. Like the insurance people told me what I needed. And that part of it was a good experience. When I needed to get somebody to, like when there was an event that I needed to call in on the insurance that they
When they're taking the money, it's a good experience.
yeah.
When they have to give it back, less.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, but ultimately the insurance company did. It took a long time. It went to forensic accountants, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And because the agent thought I was like not telling the truth or something, but then when I was there, the forensic accountant was like, "Oh no, she's right. Like you guys owe her like 4 times what you're trying to give her," you know. So, but that was because I argued for it. You know what I mean? Like they didn't cover the art. They didn't cover the artwork that I was talking about, but I wound up getting money for the business interruption because I had like a show canceled, a fair shipment canceled,
Mm-hmm.
and there were a number of delays in repairing the studio that were not my fault. It was because of their approved people and their schedules. So that was where I wound up being able to get coverage, not actually for the artworks that were
Um,
damaged.
it's really a nightmare scenario. Studio fire or any fire is terrible, but I really appreciate you sharing that traumatic learning experience.
Yeah, with the biggest learning part of it was as we just said, like making sure that you're documenting everything that comes and goes from the studio. I guess get insurance.
Yeah. So a lot of unromantic elements.
Yes, very unromantic elements. Maybe the other another lesson is that we have to keep the romance alive ourselves amidst the
Well, I noticed that professional people don't take artists as seriously as if just the being an artist. You've already lost a few serious points. And when you're dealing with a company, maybe an insurance company, maybe this wasn't your experience, but mine
oh
is
no, absolutely.
gotta
Yeah.
like they are already think you're an idiot if you're say you're an artist, and then you've got to recover.
Yeah, there's like an extra step that I know I am prepared. There's like an extra step of justification that you have to do. So I'm always like, okay, it's a niche field that
Scares people, I think.
it scares people and a lot of actual professionals don't actually know about it. Like if you go to most, I mean, maybe I think they do now, but like back in the day, they didn't, you know, like the banks didn't know that there were
You could make,
professional.
yeah.
Yeah, that you could make a living on art. You know,
Mhm.
they're like, oh, you're just an irresponsible person.
And also, I'm constantly confronting outside of the art people asking kind of ball busting questions. Like people have nothing to do with it. They'll ask like, "Oh, do you make a living from it, or do you teach?" And I'm like, you have
Oh,
no idea what you're asking. Really
yeah,
amazing artists make no
yeah,
living, and a lot of real
yeah.
not great artists make a ton of money. So
And yeah, what I've started to get over the year, people would be like, oh, you do that, oh, you do just that. And it's like, well, you never do just that, but no, I don't have an additional job. But and then you don't want to spend time educating. But I get a lot of like, I get like people who don't realize how insensitive it is to be like, and what are your prices? You know, and I'll be at a dinner party and I was like, oh, that's, I actually, the line that I now use is like, oh, that's a little sensitive. I mean, it's probably online. You could look it up somewhere, but that's also the same thing as asking what somebody's salary is. So I just tell them that this, you
well,
know,
as I think if people are unfamiliar with art, they just see headlines about crazy auctions, about like they see like $30 million for a banana.
yes. Yeah.
I mean, dealing with rejections and disappointments is a big topic for me because I'm about to start applying to things again, and I had to take a break for a year or two. It's like all the April is a rough month, as they say. The no thank you letters come at once, like boom, 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 boom.
Oh,
And like, even if it's something you don't think you're gonna get, it's just like I can only take so many of those letters. And then took some time off, but I'm about to start again.
of applying for grants and stuff like that.
Yeah, all kinds of things.
It's hard. I mean, I think it's really big deal that you put yourself in the opportunity that you would get a number of rejections at once. I think that actually shows that you're really brave and you're putting yourself out there. I know some people are like use it as a badge of honor sort of thing, but it affects me emotionally. Even the act of applying for things affects me emotionally. Like I think there's some energy that's outward artistically, and there's other energy that's like more driven by curiosity and things like that. So I think even the act of applying, rejection aside, is sort of, I mean, it's this proving yourself energy. I mean, we were talking about it in a different capacity, but I do think that we have to sort of insulate ourselves from our proving ourselves energy, because that's not really the place that we can make artwork from. So I've used strategies. I guess I use like time blocking strategies to help me with the type of energy that, like, if I know I have to do like outward facing things, like it could be an application, or it could be these things I've talked about in the past, like when I had this like insurance claim going on, like it was like I would just schedule some hours for it. Or um I've applied for like loans to make work in the past. I just like set a number of hours and I don't exceed that. So I'm not that often in a situation where I have a bunch of things coming back at once, because I think I limit what I put out, which again may not be the best example. But I think a lot of what I'm doing as a painter, um, maybe my applications are when I have to be involved in the sales of the work. So it's sort of like we have to like we're like applying for stuff all the time.
Can you tell me a little more about your time blocking strategy? Did you
Sure.
learn the basis of that somewhere, or did you make it up?
I made it up actually. Like the first time I ever did it was when I was right out of undergrad, actually. And at that point, pre-graduate school, pre-exhibiting, I needed a full-time job. And I was really stressed out about it. Like really had a lot of doubt about my capacity to I'm like, what is somebody gonna hire me for? Even though, had a degree, like had a very good degree, and a number of skills. But I was looking for not college teaching jobs. I was looking at like high school teaching jobs
Mhm.
and also some art things. But I decided I don't remember what I did. I also had to live with my parents for a little bit. So I was highly motivated to not live there for very long. And yeah, I just did like 2 hours, and like I did it like short time things, because I sort of am a workaholic and do more. I always do more than I schedule. So first you have to like learn that aspect of yourself, of whether you need to like under schedule yourself or over schedule. But I did like
Mm.
2 hours of application work. I think I did it first because I was nervous about it. I did that in the morning, and then I allowed myself like 2 hours of painting, which I did both in my parents' garage. Um, and 2 hours of painting in the afternoon. And with applications, the hard thing is like there's like one job or one person who gets the grant, or like a very small pool of people getting the thing that you're looking for. So I think you do have to be prepared for rejection. And at that time, I just made a list of like, I don't even remember what it was, of like, I'm going to apply to 10 things a week. you know,
Ambitious.
it was ambitious. It was also just for like a few months,
Mhm.
until I got 6 interviews and I got 3 job offers actually.
Hmm.
So now I really pace myself, and I actually want to, I don't apply for many things at all, actually. I guess strategies is like just systematizing it. And now I time block, like, yeah, when I do admin, or when I do yeah, like when I do things that I think are gonna tire me out, versus things that feel like they're gonna, it's very general. And then it changes a lot because the projects are always changing. So it's like the two big categories now are sort of like externally focused things and internally focused things,
Yeah.
because the internally focused things are the things that kind of fuel me and excite me, and the externally focused things are rewarding and important, but more draining. Even though, I mean, they're both draining, but one's more emotionally draining. And I just try to be really careful and make sure it's in proportion, making sure like I'm getting the thing that I need to fuel me so that I can tolerate the things that are harder. And taking social media breaks are important for dealing with
Yeah.
rejection.
Oh,
That
yeah. Oh gosh, I had to take Instagram off my phone for 6 months one time. It's just made me everything made me miserable, and I knew that was just like cuckoo. And
I think it's chemical. I don't think it's like, like we can say it's rational that seeing, but it's like you're seeing accomplishment, 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 and that's not way that daily life is for anybody, right?
yeah,
And so
it's a highlight reel, and it's normally fine. I can understand that, but there was a period where I was just being just dragged by the horses, and everything seemed so punishing. And I'm like, this is weird and not me. I need a reset.
definitely have to be careful.
Yeah, it should be there for your benefit. If it makes you upset, just get rid of it.
Yeah. I still feel that I did go on a break uh for, I guess it was just like 2.5 months earlier this year. And it was a lot of, I'm based in LA, and there was like a lot of fire imagery on there. And it was really hard for me to process what was going on and figure out yeah. So it was not serving me well. Right. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go off it for a while until my whatever stress. I was just like, I'm too stressed basically, and I need to de-stress and like sort of rewire the energy, like the input that I'm receiving on a daily basis, and it needs to be a little bit slower. So it really helped me to be off it for a period of time, and then um yeah, re-engage when it felt like more of a means of connecting to people that I, wouldn't see spending so much time alone. I was thinking about, I was like, what is it that I have to share that I would share? I mean, we were talking about nitty-gritty things, and I was like, I think the only thing that I really know at this point that people look that I think is worth knowing is like how important just continuing is. Like that's actually the most important thing, that you just like do the thing that you care about over and over again. And there's no like magic to being an artist. You just kind of wake up and do it every day and figure out how to do it. And
Yeah,
yeah.
agree. Just hang in there and hang in there for each other.
Yeah, and focus on what we really like about such like situations and people. And
Yeah, there's a lot of unpleasant, but there are a lot of really great people, and find them, hold on to them, stay in touch with them.
sometimes I think about being an artist as, I mean, like we have like support, support in various capacities, but I think a lot of the times it is like being a one-man band. You're like having to do all these different things all the time. But it's like the people who choose to do the one-man band sort of thing, I think are usually pretty special people. So that's another thing that's like self-selecting about the many art communities that I've been a part of, I think. So,
Okay, well, thank you. Oh,
bye.